people don't always want to hear what they think they want to hear. They want to see creators create, and they want to hear creators um, work out their art. And so when I book shows, I try to always remember that there's always room for the experimental, for lack of a better term. There's always room for people trying new things. Now,
Watched that wonderful interview that you did with City Beats, Eats and More, and I learned so much. It was really hard to believe when I was listening to it like how much information you have. You are basically an encyclopedia for the Lower Mainland jazz scene, I think, and more, and just music overall relating to jazz. So you mentioned during your interview that you were heavily influenced by the experimental jazz scene in the 90s. The Shape of Jazz to Come by Ornette Coleman back in 1959 was one of those seminal influences on your taste in jazz. I just want to know how, and I'm going to just show people just so they can see the album cover, but how has this influenced your current approach in organizing and the promotion of music? But really did influence some of your techniques, your whole kind of theme of promoting, I don't know, the type of jazz that you really embrace, which is type of experimental jazz. So can you tell me a little bit about that?
um, experimental isn't always the best way to describe um, that music. And when you use the term experimental, you're kind of the assumption is you don't know how it's going to end up. And people like Ornette Coleman, they knew exactly what they were doing. Ornette Coleman, people like Sun Ra, people like John Coltrane later in his life, they knew exactly what they were doing. They just didn't want to do what everybody else was doing, and they weren't interested in following the same musical rules. So, someone like Ornette, who really had that ethos throughout his whole career, for me was and still is, kind of a reminder that not everything has to fit the same cookie cutter approach. And, we often have a sense of what we think jazz is. And because there is a type of jazz that's more commercial, there's a type of jazz that's easier to sell tickets to. And so we kind of focus on that. But the reality is that people like to be challenged by this music, and that um, people don't always want to hear what they think they want to hear. They want to see creators create, and they want to hear creators um, work out their art. And so when I book shows, I try to always remember that there's always room for the experimental, for lack of a better term. There's always room for people trying new things. Now, the trick is to understand that maybe the audience for that is smaller than the audience for something that's more mainstream, and that's okay. But typically, not, usually promoters try to do a one size fits all approach, and that doesn't work for jazz because jazz isn't one thing, jazz is a lot of
Yeah,
different things.
yeah,
And
for sure.
so what you see when you come to one of our shows, one of the Infidel shows, is that, one show over at this venue is going to be this thing, and then another show at a different venue is going to be something else. And some of the venues are big, and we make sure that we're trying to book artists that fit for those venues. But then some of the venues are going to be really small, and we try, typically that's where we do our more, experimental programming, original music, creative music, music that isn't necessarily for everybody, but definitely is for a small audience. And so most promoters have a problem with the smaller shows because it's honestly harder to monetize those shows. It's harder to make money on small shows because you only have so many tickets you can sell in a small room. But there's always going to be a place for that in infidel shows. There's always going to be a space for creative music. Now we need to do bigger shows too, so we can pay the
Mhm.
bills. But um, people like Ornette, they
Mhm.
didn't care too much about, whether or not they were monetizing ticket sales. They just cared about the art. So I always try to make sure that even though, having sellout shows is great and success is great and filling up rooms like the Hollywood is really great. But at the end of the day, the real work is being done at these tiny venues where artists are creating. So we always make sure we have a space for those people.
Yeah. And I really appreciate that. I think I saw a snippet of a show you were doing at it's Frankie's After Dark or something. What is it that you actually were doing there for a bit at the beginning? It was like you had the night shows or the later at they started at 11
Yep, and we
and
still do. Frankie's Jazz Club is a mainstream dinner club and jazz
yeah.
club.
Yeah.
And my colleague Corey Weeds does the booking on the early shows. And
Mhm.
that's a really good example of, what most people think commercial jazz is. And,
Right.
a lot of the bigger names in the Vancouver jazz scene will play there. People like Corey Weeds plays there all the time. Jody
Mhm.
Prosnick will play there
Yeah.
regularly. Brad Turner, etc.
Mhm.
And about 4 years ago, I started booking late shows there at
Mhm.
11 o'clock, and we still do to this day.
Yeah.
And the idea originally was that those were going to be more experimental, those were going to be more free jazz, for lack of a better term.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it never really worked the way that we wanted it to. Because at the end of the day, people just wanted to hear the jazz they wanted to hear from
Mhm.
that venue. And that's okay. We've pivoted.
Yeah.
And now that series is very much about young musicians and developing artists and
Mhm.
people who aren't necessarily, selling out Frankie's at 8 p.m., but and they need a place to play. They want some exposure. They want to
Yeah.
be able to get on that great stage and play that great piano
Mhm.
and work on their great sound system. And it's been really great. We're coming up on 4 years actually in the beginning of
Mhm.
May,
Yeah.
since we've had that series.
So you're actually aligning yourself now with theater. So yeah, that's incredible. Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, it's definitely different for me and different for infidels, and it really
Mhm.
comes from a lot of work that I have done with Crystal DeSantos. So, Crystal
Mhm.
is, for those of you who don't know, is just a wonderful local singer, composer, creator, playwright. She does a little bit of everything.
Mhm.
And over the last couple of years, her and I have done a bunch of shows together, and we've had a lot of fun working together. We work together really well, and she is really just easy, not only easy to work with, but just you just learn a lot when you work with her, and it's hard to not get excited about music when you work with her. And we have other stuff coming up this year. We're going to be announcing some of that soon, but the
Mhm.
she brought this musical up to me that she was working on, and she's done musicals before. Hey Viola was a big success for her a couple years back, and so this is a new musical that she's working on with Tracy Powers, and who runs Musical Theater Works here in Vancouver.
Mhm.
And they asked if I would want to come on and be involved as an associate producer and help with the marketing and help with the promotion. And and so far so good. I mean, we're launching in just over a month at the Olympic Village Arts Club Theater stage. We've tickets are on sale right now. Crystal's involved. Don Pemberton is a big part of it.
Mhm.
Chris
Mhm.
Davis, who's a wonderful
Mhm.
trumpeter, originally, or well, not originally from Vancouver, but lived here for many years, living in Brooklyn now.
Oh,
And
wow.
he's going to be coming here for that and also for a big Miles Davis concert that I'm presenting as well. So it's uh, it's different.
Hmm.
from what we normally do, but
Yeah.
it's really not that different. At the end of the
No.
day, it's a musical experience asking people to come and spend a little money to be entertained, and that's really what I do. So
Yeah.
it works well, and we're excited about it. It's going to be good.
Yeah. And I really like the idea too that it's exploring this part of like Hogan's Alley area and exploring that history of Vancouver that a lot of people don't know about. So I think it's really bringing attention back to a very special part of this city. And yeah.
Yeah, as soon as we announced it, I had a musician friend of mine who currently lives in New Orleans.
Yeah.
He reached out right away and he said, "Oh yeah, we used to go to Vi's for chicken at like 2 in the morning after every show. That's where we
Yeah.
would go." Um, so but yeah, it's not something everybody knows. And in the last 5 years or so, it's really, or 5 or 10 years, I think that that
Mhm.
history has come back and people are really starting to make sure that we make that a priority.